Welcome to Genes So Rare. In this December Patient Voices feature, we highlight Dan, a retired US Navy veteran who is originally from Pennsylvania. He calls himself as world's most interesting man of mutations. This episode explores his diagnostic journey, decision-making process around prophylactic surgery, maintaining an active lifestyle with ostomy, and the story behind his nickname Dry Dog, and his meeting with late Dr. Henry T. Lynch. We'll end 2025 with this simple yet powerful story of awareness and hope. Through education and proactive care, more lives can be saved. Hi,
Hello.
welcome back to Gene So Rare. This is a space where we share the voices and stories of the people living with rare disease diagnosis. I'm your host, Benita, and thank you for joining us today. Today, we are honored to welcome Dan Dry Dog Shockley. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining us today. It's truly our honor to have you here, and I'm excited to learn from your journey.
Thank you, Benita. It's an on your podcast. Yeah, my name is Dan Drydock Shockley. As you mentioned, I'm retired Navy, Operation Desert Storm, Enduring an Iraqi Freedom veteran, and I have been deployed to the Persian Gulf 4 different times during my 22-year Navy career. 3 of those deployments were on ships. My last deployment was September 2001 till September 2003, where I was assigned to a base in Bahrain, a little island off the coast of Saudi Arabia in the Persian Gulf. And I retired. I was 43 years old, and I registered with the Veterans Administration healthcare system. And when I turned 50, I scheduled my colonoscopy, and the results revealed 100 polyps embedded throughout my colon, rectum, and anus. And one of those polyps was causing an 80% blockage in my ascending colon. And as a result of the results of the colonoscopy findings, I was immediately referred to a certified genetic counselor. At the time, I resided in Hawaii, and I was assigned or referred to the Tripler Army Medical Center there on Oahu, and underwent DNA testing. When the results revealed had hereditary colon cancer syndrome known as adenomatous polyposis coli. I know that's a lot to digest, no pun intended. So the APC mutation is in the 5th chromosome, and based on the findings of the testing, it was in the best practice of medicine to have a total proctocolectomy with a permanent ileostomy. Now, what that is removing the colon, rectum, and anus, and then I'm outfitted with an stoma, an ostomy for the rest of my life. So that's where my journey began 13 and a half years ago. And it's recommended that I undergo routine endoscopic surveillance. And I've had that done every year. And 5 years ago, the endoscopic surveillance revealed a 3-centimeter adenoma in the beginning of my small intestine, the jejunum. And based on those findings, I was recommended to have surgery, which was the pancreas sparing duodenectomy resection surgery. Now that's similar to the Whipple procedure. However, it's more specific, if my memory serves me, for individuals who have the APC mutation. So and in the meantime, I relocated to Northern California to be closer to the Palo Alto VA Medical Center, which is where I undergo my surveillance. So 5 years ago, I was referred to Stanford University Cancer Center, and then I had my surgery, which was pancreas duodenectomy resection surgery there. And I've been asymptomatic, no family history all along, and I share my updates with my siblings and my first cousins. I'm the youngest of my siblings and youngest of my first cousins. Now, it's important to note that based on my age I was actually 51 when I had the colonoscopy. Um, based on my age, having the APC mutation, I've been diagnosed with a attenuated FAP, and that's a subvariant of FAP. Now, the attenuated FAP was discovered. Dr. Henry T. Lynch, the late Dr. Henry T. Lynch, is credited with the discovery of AFAP. And at the time, he was 86 years old. The director of preventative medicine, among other things, at Creighton University. And little did I know that my certified genetic counselor and colorectal surgeon had been colleagues of Dr. Lynch through the decades. So, unbeknownst to me, Dr. Lynch came to Hawaii 6 months after my surgery, and I got to meet him at one of his academic lectures at the University of Hawaii Cancer Center. My genetic counselor introduced me to Dr. Lynch personally in private before the lecture, and then we sat down afterwards. And I got to talk to him about my diagnosis. I ended up having a copy of my DNA test results, pathology report, and discharge summary. And he went on to say that I have a unique case of AFAP. And he said that since I'm asymptomatic with no family history, it's very well possible the mutation started with me. Well, I don't have any biological children, so the mutation is going to stop. And we don't have any information in my family, both the Shockley and the Wilson side, of anybody having any colon problems. So Dr. Lynch, at that point, he offered to review the pathology reports of my routine endoscopic surveillance through the years. He considered me a colleague, and then I would receive his feedback and insight. And then the last communication I had with him was the fall of 2018. And he passed away on June 2nd of 2019 at 91 and a half years old. And he was still going in to his research lab at Creighton University up until a month before he passed away. So at that point, I realized that my purpose in life is to educate medical students about attenuated FAP, continuing the legacy of Dr. Lynch on the importance of early detection and prevention in hopes of saving lives. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Awesome. It's a lot of information, so we'll just break down one by one. So first of all, hearing about you meeting Dr. Henry was awesome, and would like to know more about that also. But before that, we'll start like going back when before the time you were diagnosed. So how did you feel before that?
No, I was asymptomatic. Still am. I scheduled the colonoscopy because it was, I've always heard when you turn 50, you have a colonoscopy. That's the gold standard. And so I was more than willing to have that done. And I had no idea what they were talking about about the polyps and the hereditary colon cancer syndrome and DNA testing. Had no idea what a certified genetic counselor was. So it was a whole new journey for me to learn, which I'm still learning. 13 and a half years into this, I'm still learning. I'm asking questions with all my medical team members and the medical students and the faculty in the different universities that I collaborate with globally for the last decade. I'm always asking questions, trying to see where this journey is going to take me. I mean, we don't know really.
Awesome. I just wanted to make sure that when you were working in military, telltale signs of something going on with your digestion or something like that, or you were as healthy as possible?
Yeah, no indications whatsoever. I mean, this is a hereditary colon cancer syndrome, so it's genetic, and it just happened to be, we discovered it with the DNA testing, which is the advancements in medical technology globally. So,
Correct.
I mean, if it wasn't for Dr. Lynch's research back, he started he's the founding father of hereditary cancer research, and he started that research back in the early 60s. So, I mean, I was born in November of 60, so up until the time he passed away, my entire life he had been devoted to hereditary cancer research. So, having an opportunity to meet him is just, I mean, to this day, I couldn't script anything better. But no, I have been asymptomatic, and it's just like I said, that's the importance of preventative measures, and to continue with the surveillance, to keep track and keep tabs on the mutation, because it will and has manifested in other organs. And I just continue to talk to my medical team members and see where we go from here.
Okay. So once once you were a healthy person, and then suddenly you were diagnosed with this mutation with genetic testing. So that was a transition, life-changing diagnosis. How did you feel after the diagnosis? How did you tackle the life-changing diagnosis?
Great question. Well, the one thing I've learned in the military, the experiences of my 22-year career have equipped me to adapt, improvise, and overcome. Plan for the worst, hope for the best. And I've also learned in the last couple decades that in life we have two choices: we can react or we can respond. And I choose to respond by gathering information so I can make a logical decision, versus by reacting and make a rash decision I may later regret. So I gathered the information that I needed that would lead to having the total proctocolectomy surgery once I had confirmation that I had the APC mutation. And that surgery was in the best practice of medicine. Now, I didn't have to have that surgery then. However, the longer I waited, the more likely any of those 100 polyps could develop into colorectal cancer. And then it would impact your other organs, And so I knew that that was the best practice of medicine to have that surgery. So I wanted to have that surgery. And then that was successfully performed 2 weeks after my AFAP diagnosis. So we were able to have that taken care of right away. And then that started my journey with a permanent ostomy, and just to learn, and like I said, continue to learn about my mutation, and reach out to other medical students and other medical professionals, not just regionally and nationally, but internationally, to try to gather as much information as I could about it. Because Dr. Lynch shared with me that he estimated that less than 0.03% of the global population are impacted by the AFAP diagnosis. Now, there's no statistics on it. That's something that Dr. Lynch shared with me. So my hopes are in the decades to come that perhaps we'd have some statistics on it globally. But there's a lot to take in. However, being in the mindset that I had, which was I tend not to think about things I'm unable to control, such as medical conditions. What I can control is my positive attitude. And after this many decades on God's green earth, my positive attitude has brought me this far. Why change now? So then I broke down my strategy was a breakdown into 3 phases: learn about the mutation before the results came in the event that I did have the mutation, then read about the what a total proctocolectomy with a permanent ileostomy surgery is, and then what it's like to live with a permanent ostomy. Now, theory is one thing, practical applications another. So um, I had the opportunity once again to talk to my medical team um, about all these things as I broke it down into 3 phases. So when the time came that it took 6 weeks to get the results back. So I was talking to my colorectal surgeon, my genetic counselor, my GI doctor, the chief of surgery, among other folks in my medical team, weekly to pick their brain to kind of so I would have be better prepared. So when the results did come in, and then when I was informed about the results, my colorectal surgeon and genetic counselor sat me down, and this was on the June 29th of 2012. After 6 weeks of waiting for the results to come back, and my colorectal surgeon said, "Well, Daniel, the results came back. You have the APC mutation, and we recommend that you consider the total proctocolectomy surgery." Now, he said you don't have to have the surgery, however, you need it because the longer you wait, more likely any of those polyps develop into colorectal cancer. So I said, "Well, I've read about this. I'm ready. Let's do the surgery." And my surgeon looked at me. He goes, "Daniel, that's what I thought you'd say. I've already scheduled your surgery. It's 2 weeks from today." So July 13th, I had the surgery, and it took a lot out of me, no pun intended. But mentally, it kept my brain busy, and as I was laying in the hospital bed there for 2 weeks, I was reading as much as I could, continue about the mutation and the surgery, recovery, and being a permanent ostomate, talking to different medical team members there, and reaching out to as many individuals, organizations as I could to to learn as much as I could about what it's like to have a permanent ostomy. I mean, I had no idea of any of this. I was learning as I go. So yeah, I mean, having a positive attitude is invaluable to help overcome adversity. I mean, I've done that many times in my military career, and I just transitioned into civilian life and used that same strategy, to to respond versus reacting. I hope that helps.
Yes, definitely. So, what I hear is your positive attitude is what kept you going even after the worst thing that you have gone, but you still try to find the best, and you try to read as much as possible about your condition. So, so tell me, how did your genetic counselor help you through the diagnosis? Did she plan out the next steps? Did you get to know how to manage your condition after meeting with her?
Yeah, my genetic counselor, broke everything down for me, and of course we had to wait for the results to come in. But in the meantime, she provided me with a lot of credible resources, and of course, once I was diagnosed and once I found out that the mutation AFAP was discovered by Dr. Henry T. Lynch, and her and my colorectal surgeon were colleagues of Dr. Lynch. Then I got to meet him, so I had the world-renowned leader pertaining to AFAP and the father of hereditary cancer research. So I had open communication with Dr. Lynch, through the years. Um, so I mean, that's incredible. I couldn't script anything better. So that gave me the reassurance. And plus, my genetic counselor and my colorectal surgeon were spot on with everything, and I was able to be provided with a lot of information, and then I could ask questions. But once again, I'm not a medical professional, so I didn't know any of this. So I'm going into this learning. However, I look back once again at my military career and all the adversity I had to overcome. So I was able to transition. It took a while. I'm not gonna, it took a while. And however, I just tried to stay the course, and and just try to be a student of what I have and learn, and once again, learn as much as I can. And yeah, it's been an incredible journey, to say the least, and there's not a week that goes by that I'm not have an opportunity to communicate with different medical students globally, or medical professionals, or different organizations pertaining to whether it's pertaining to men's mental health, life with an ostomy, hereditary colon cancer syndrome, rare disease community. So it's been an amazing journey, and I'm looking forward to many more months and years of this journey to collaborate with various medical students and medical professionals globally.
Definitely, we are looking forward to that too. And you talked so much about Dr. meeting
Mm.
with Dr. Lynch. So, what did you learn from Dr. Lynch's experience in hereditary cancer, and what kind of purpose are you driving, like his legacy forward by interacting with students and medical professionals?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I go back to when Dr. Lynch, in 1944, Dr. Lynch, at 16 years old, dropped out of high school, joined the Navy, and he used a relative's ID card to get in because he was underage. And he had a 2-year tour back then. And shortly after he'd been in, they found out that he was underage, but they let him serve anyway. So he served in 3 different campaigns through his 2-year career, two-year tour in the Navy. And while he was in, back in the day on the ships, the sailors on their off time would have boxing tournaments called smokers, and he was a real good boxer. And he got out of the Navy. He ended up marrying his neighborhood sweetheart. Remember, he didn't graduate high school, so it wasn't a high school sweetheart. He married his neighborhood sweetheart, and one day he's coming home because he was boxing then. When he got out of the Navy, he was boxing. That was going to be his thing, and his wife looked at him and said, Henry, this boxing gig ain't going to cut it. You need to get yourself a real profession. So he went to the Veterans Administration and got assistance to start taking college classes. And that was after 46. So in the years to come, he ended up studying, working on a degree in human genetics. And then he went on to work on a degree with studying clinical psychology. And then a few years later, he ended up becoming a medical doctor. He was a proctologist back then, as we know him now as colorectal surgeons. And in the late 50s, early 60s, he had a lot of patients that were passing away of colon cancer. So he suspected that colon cancer may not just be environmental, it may be hereditary. So he started applying for grants to do hereditary cancer research. And the grants would get turned down. They said, Henry, you're way off. He goes, no, I think I'm on to something. So eventually, years later, he ended up getting grants. I mean, Lynch syndrome, that's named after Dr. Henry T. Lynch. And then in 1984, he received a grant from the American Cancer Society to do research, which 6 years later led to the discovery of attenuated FAP being a subvariant of FAP, and it's an autosomal dominant germline mutation. Now, having the APC mutation, depending on your age, 50 and younger, you would have be diagnosed with FAP. 50 to 55 would be the attenuated FAP. I was right in that window of 51. So when I got to meet him and collaborate with him and communicate with him through the years up until he passed, I realized that my purpose to educate medical students this way about this mutation and the importance of early detection and prevention, this would help them out in their medical career. And, this way they would have this information, they can share it with their colleagues. Because at the time that I was diagnosed, Dr. Lynch, like I said, was 86 and a half years old. So my hopes are, and I'm 65 now, my hopes are in the decades to come, it would help the global, medical community um, to they have statistics on this, among other things. However, um, that's my piece that I'm providing back to the medical, students and the healthcare providers. But I get the medical students, as soon as I can, in their academics. And this way, they'll have this, to share with their colleagues because, medical professionals, they'll go to conferences and conventions globally so they can interact. And I'm sure that's how my GI doctor found out about this. He suspected I had a hereditary colon cancer syndrome. Now, my GI doctor was 70 years old when I had my first and only colonoscopy. And we talked after my surgery. He said that he was going to retire 6 years earlier. And I said to him, I said, well, you know why you didn't retire? Because you needed to save my life. And so where did he hear about um, someone with having all these polyps could have a hereditary colon cancer syndrome? Because DNA testing wasn't available back when he was going to school. So as the years and decades go on, the medical advancements, so we can have DNA testing, and we know which what the proper the best practice of medicine. We know what the how to handle and take care of these patients. Provide information for them. And so I had many conversations with my genetic counselor there in Hawaii. I still communicate with her. I mean, I still give her updates on what my I'm a patient at Stanford Cancer Center for the rest of my life, and I'm a live case presentation for the Stanford Master of Science program in human genetics for genetic counseling, their molecular foundations of medicine course. And then I do that whenever they need me down there. We can do it virtually. I can do it in person. And this is my way of giving back. I mean, especially because I had my recent surgery there at Stanford, and I'll be going back to Stanford this Friday for a 5-year post-op checkup with my surgeon. I never had cancer. Okay, I never had colorectal cancer. I never had pancreatic cancer, and this is the importance of early detection. So with the technology we
Yes.
have with Dr. Lynch's research, this is we take it to the next step, the next level now, because we know about the possibility once you have the APT mutation of what impact that could have on your, if it goes on if you have to continue with your surveillance, you know, and asymptomatic or not, especially asymptomatic, going through surveillance. So now I go every other year unless something else comes up, and then the mutation, AFAP will also impact other organs. So it's already taken over my stomach. Um, there's another part of the AFAP that will impact, it could impact your eyes. So that's known as chirpy, and that's congenital hypertrophy retinal pigmentation of the epithelia. And I have elliptical lesions in both eyes. So I have ophthalmologist and optometrist appointments every year. And then every other year, I have my GI doctor do the surveillance. And, we talk, we have open conversations before my procedures, afterwards. Um, what's next? I mean, we don't know. I mean, all we can do is continue with the surveillance, and there'll be other things that could go on. But right now, I just continue with the surveillance, continue having conversations with my medical team, and but that's the beauty of what Dr. Lynch's research has done over the last 6 decades, and so afforded this opportunity to share my journey um, on the importance of, once again, early detection and prevention, preventative measures.
Correct. So, most of the genetic counseling focuses on preventative surgery, so like preventative practices. And Dr. Lynch's definitely his contribution to knowing about this diagnosis before uh, actually anything sets up is like in the body. This is a really great, not good, I would say, research that Dr. Lynch put in all these years, and you are doing a great service by advancing his prophecy. So I want to know more about your osteomy also. So I see on your social media posts that with osteomy also you travel, and you want to like get the word out that it is possible to lead a normal life with osteomy. So do you want to talk about something in that direction?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What I also try to do is I'm an ambassador for the United Ostomy Associations of America, and I help by being an ambassador for them by help to destigmify having an ostomy. There's nothing to be ashamed about, nothing to be embarrassed about. You know, there's two ways to look at having an ostomy. It could be planned, it could be unplanned, and with that, it could be a temporary or it could be a permanent. Mine was planned and mine's permanent. So I went into this knowing that this was going to be permanent. Okay, it was planned. There could be individuals who ended up having get into an accident of some sort and end up having a temporary ostomy, waking up and finding out, don't know anything about it. Or it could be a permanent ostomy based on how severe the injury was. Okay, and there's other medical conditions with the GI tract that could lead to a temporary ostomy um, because of a condition. You know, there's different conditions out there um, that could lead to a temporary, and then later they do what's called a reversal. However, I focused on, since I had the mutation, that I knew that it was in the best practice of medicine, had a permanent ileostomy, so it was planned. So that's the direction I took. And all I try to do is continue to share my journey in hopes of being a source of inspiration and encouragement for those who hear about it or read about my journey. Everybody's going to have a different um, mindset. You know, everybody's going to have a different journey. Um, However, you go back to my military uh, experiences, equipped me to be able to, chart this course of being able to adapt, improvise, and overcome. So, um, yeah, it's the ostomy. It's really interesting. Yeah, really. I mean, honestly, I just go about my life as if nothing happened because you know, my ostomy nurse at the hospital came in and was equipping me to be self-sufficient, you know, and just showing me what I need to be, things that I can do to help myself, you know, to go about life with an ostomy. You know, it's a learning process, you know, but once again, I look at that as a challenge versus an obstacle. And what do I like to do with challenges? I like to overcome adversity, and that's what I've been doing. And so you can travel with it. I mean, you have to modify depending on what you have. There's three different types of ostomies. You could have mine as a permanent ileostomy, meaning that I don't have a colon, rectum, and anus. There's what's called a colostomy, and that's for an individual who had a resection, and that could be from Crohn's, um, ulcerative colitis, short bowel syndrome. There's a host of other diagnoses that could lead um, to a colostomy. And then for the bladder, there's a urostomy. Now, I have ostomate colleagues that have a urostomy and a colostomy. You know, so however, the United Ostomy Associations of America provide invaluable resources for ostomates and for their family members and caregivers to help them along the way. But it gets back to the individual, having the choice to react or respond. It's how they want to do it. Yeah, there's a lot going on with it. However, I learned also you're only going to get out of what you put into it. So if you don't put something into it, that's going to have a direct impact on what you get out of it. And I enjoy everything that I've experienced in life and medical. My medical diagnosis. So I'm not wired like everybody else, and I like to share about my journey. But the reason I share, once again, is not just to to continue the legacy of Dr. Lynch, but it's also, to learn as much as I can and hope that something along the way I'll pick up, to help me, move on to the, as I go down this journey of life.
Yeah, so my next question was pointing to that direction only. Was there a point where you felt like this is my journey, and now on I'll take the reins in my hand, and this is how I'm going to lead my life? So any breakthrough point that you experienced during this journey, and now how does it make you feel, like the journey that you took for all these years and you are willing to do it in future? How does it make you feel?
Wow, great question. Lots of parts to that one. Well, the about a year after my surgery, I woke up in the middle of the night. I had an epiphany, and I wrote down. I turned on the nightlight. I had a little piece of notebook, and I wrote down the first two words on my mind were "forge ahead." So I wrote that down, forge ahead. Then I wrote down purpose. So forge ahead with a purpose. Then I said to myself, well, that's FAP. I have attenuated FAP. What am I always doing?
Yes.
Oh, always forge ahead with a purpose. So that's my mantra. And my mantra is a positive spin on a bleak diagnosis. So then when Dr. Lynch passed away, I went back to my mantra. And since I'm always forging ahead with a purpose, and I realized that at that point, my purpose was to continue his legacy. So everything there's a chronological order there of how things happen, but it's because of it has a, I'd say, direct impact on obviously my faith, but my military experience equipping me to adapt, improvise, and overcome. And looking at it's not an obstacle, it's a challenge. And what do I like to do? I like to overcome it. You know, so that's where my positive attitude, my strong faith, had the ability to overcome adversity. And then I took the word adapt because I thought of being able to adapt with life with a permanent ostomy, and I broke the word down. I broke adapt down to attitude determines the ability for a positive transformation, because having a permanent ostomy, your body, you're transforming it into having a permanent ostomy. So all those three things together, afforded me the opportunity to stay on course. And to this day, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to share how my positive attitude, my strong faith, and being able to adapt, having a permanent ostomy, leads to my purpose of educating, medical students on the, continuing Dr. Lynch's legacy and the importance of early detection and prevention. So that's the course that I'm on. Now, as far as my surveillance goes, and whatever's revealed to me in the months and years to come, I mean, it's I'm just ready to make sure that I continue to be able to respond by then collect as much information as I can to make a logical decision. And I have a great medical team within the Veterans Administration and with the Stanford Cancer Center. So I once again, everybody's going to have a different journey. I like to ask lots of questions, and I carry a binder with me that's now it's a 3-inch binder, about 120 pages, double-sided. I have all the results of my endoscopic surveillance, the photograph, the images they took. I have the pathology reports, so and then while I was at Stanford, um, I had the opportunity to go through I was asked I have a genetic counselor at Stanford that I've been assigned, and she asked me if I would be interested in having a comprehensive DNA test. And I said, okay, what does that entail? She goes, well, it'll be a DNA test looking for 148 gene mutations. We know you have the APC mutation, and this would look for 147 other gene mutations. And I said, yeah, let's do it. So those results came back in less than 10 days, revealing that I have they confirmed I had the APC mutation in the 5th chromosome, but it also revealed that I had schwannomatosis in my 22nd chromosome. So that's unique there because how many patients have two gene mutations, and these are both listed as, and I've heard in different communities is they're both listed as ultra rare. So and schwannomatosis is more rare than attenuated FAP. That's what I'm being told. So I've been assigned a neuromuscular doctor, and with the VA and a neurosurgeon at Stanford. So I've just have go through their whatever surveillance they set up. So far, I've had a brain MRI, and those results came back unimpressive. So there's no schwannomas in my brain. So I come back and say, well, there's nothing there. I've been telling people that for years. But the thing too is, I have humor is the best medicine, and I can have fun with myself. I'm sharing what helps me get through. Once again, everybody's going to be different. It took time. It takes time. It continues to take time to read about things, but I have fun with it, and I have fun with it at my own expense. Okay, it's only because that helps me get through things, and it helps the medical students and the medical professionals see where I'm at with, I'm providing a patient's perspective, and I want them to know I'm comfortable with what I have. So give it to me, give it to me, be blunt, it's not going to scare me. It would take time to plan things, obviously, but I want to know. And that's, but, yeah. So, I mean, I can go on for a while about that, but does that help out?
Yeah, definitely it does help out. And schwannomatosis is another diagnosis. So you have a lot of mutations. So
Yeah.
kind of unique about you, something unique about you that you're a man of mutations.
Yeah. I consider
Yeah.
myself the world's
So
most interesting man of mutations. That's my little
correct.
catchphrase I put on my social media. Once again, I have fun with it. It's a spin-off of Austin Powers, the International Man of Mystery, and just a little. I have fun with it.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Um, so just going back on a question that occurred to me when I first saw your name. So I don't know if you want to share it or not, but your name contains dry dock.
Yeah,
So what does that signify?
yeah. No, that's fine. Absolutely, yeah. No, you ask any question. Well, what happened in the Navy? I was on 7 different ships, and 2 of those ships had part of my tour on that ship. The ship was in dry dock, and one of those ships was a very small ship, about 250 feet long and 42 feet wide. And we were in dry dock for about a year and a half on my 3-year tour on there. And the other ship that was in dry dock came back from a deployment we were on in the Persian Gulf, and that was the Abraham Lincoln. The USS Abraham Lincoln is an aircraft carrier. At the time, that was the largest warship in the world. Well, so fast forward to when I retired, and about 6 years ago, I was introduced to a vintage baseball club here in Sacramento area, and they played by 1863 rules, vintage baseball. So I was intrigued about it. So I showed up and they asked if I wanted to play. So they put me in the lineup, and they asked me what position I play, and I said first base. So they had me on the lineup first base, and then the second baseman's name was Dan also. So I went to the coach and I said, hey, we got to mix this up because you got the right side of the infield. You got two players. Their names Dan. And he goes, oh, well, we recommend our players to have a vintage themed nickname. And I said, okay. And I looked up and I said, just call me Dry Dock. I'll explain later. So the and I'm not one to give myself a nickname, but I thought this was fitting. Okay. So you remember I mentioned I was on the USS Abraham Lincoln. We were in dry dock. Okay. I'm on land now. I'm away from the water. I'm playing vintage baseball. 1863 was during the Civil War. And who was president? President Abraham Lincoln. Well,
Lincoln.
when I joined the Navy, my home of record at the time was Illinois, which is known as the land of Lincoln. And I told them that, and I said, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, and it stuck. And then it has a nice ring to it. But the thing too is, I'm not near the ocean anymore. I'm inland, and I'll consider myself in dry dock. So that's where that comes from. And I just,
Awesome.
like I said, I'm not one to give myself a nickname, but I thought that was kind of fitting, and I like a nice ring to it. And so take it for what
Yeah.
it's worth.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. That's good. That's a pretty good story behind the nickname. So yeah. And so we are almost towards the end, and I wanted to know what uh, learnings from your life learnings, what do you want to share with people? Because once you get a life-changing diagnosis, mostly since we do not have the military background, we go through therapy because there is a lot to process. Uh, Being with someone with a military background, you project yourself as having a strong mentality. So, what would you suggest to other patients who have been diagnosed with a hereditary condition, and how to go about it? And I hear that you definitely read and asked a lot of questions. So, based on that, what would you suggest? Some suggest the people who have gone through a diagnosis recently.
Yeah, great question. And all the parts to it. Yeah. So my take-home points would be a positive attitude, maintain a positive attitude, and you know, keep the faith. You know, be able to adapt, and then find out what your purpose is based on that. You know, ask your family members. You know, this is a holiday season is a great time to get together with family members and see if there's a family history. I mean, there may not be, like, you know, but you know, talk to your medical doctors as well. Make it your medical team. Find out if there's different checkups you need to have. You know, just I mean, a lot of things are age specific. You know, we're trying to get the colonoscopy or the colorectal screening down to 45, and you know how that goes through, and you know how the individuals are receptive, the patients are receptive to that. You know, I mean, I look at so you know, attitude, maintain a positive attitude. You know, keep the faith. Um, I mean, what is you know, and you know, hope. I mean, what is you know, faith is having hope. I've heard once that faith is imminence of the unseen. You know, so in general sense, faith is when you look outside and you see the tree branches swaying in the breeze. Okay, you don't see the effect of the breeze. I mean, you don't see the breeze, you see the effect of the breeze. So that's the example I can share about hope that I've heard through the decades. You know, then being able to adapt, whatever the diagnosis may be, whatever you know the surveillance or whatever the treatment regime. So your positive attitude, keep the faith, being able to adapt, and then you know hopefully you know there'll be a purpose there that you. But things take time. But talk to your family members, talk to your medical team, have open dialogue with them, and then my mantra: always forge ahead with a purpose. I mean that's my life. You know, my purpose is to continue the legacy of Dr. Lynch. Now that's my specific journey, but the attitude, the faith, the adapt, and the purpose, those would be my take-home points. But everybody's going to have their own way to handle things. You know, their own journey. But you know, we're all on this journey of life together, and now we can do things virtually, you know, globally, and that's incredible because you know we get to share. You know, that's my insight. You know, that I can share. And I mean, I send out positive vibes. I get that back tenfold. I mean, that's how we ended up getting introduced. You know, through Instagram or LinkedIn. because we have mutual friends. So we're all in
Yes.
this journey
Yeah.
and we interact. It could be on the rare disease community, the ostomy community. It could be men's mental health, hereditary colon cancer syndrome, pathology. There's all different avenues, all different platforms, and so I share, you know, my journey on as many platforms that have a direct impact on my life. So, but positive attitude is going to help the individual overcome adversity, maintaining the faith, being able to adapt to whatever the diagnosis. It's not going to be easy. However, that's where you go back to the faith that you have and your attitude. Okay, I hope that helps.
Yes, definitely. So to conclude, the first thing is get genetic testing, and the earlier the better, because that can detect things. So in your case, you got a preventative surgery, and finding out things before the things go south uh, is a good next step to begin with. And once diagnosed with rare disease condition, ultra rare condition in your case, so I know that I said that we are about time, but I was just intrigued. Like, you have an ultra rare condition, so do you have enough resources? Did you find enough resources to study about the schwannomatosis? I think I pronounced it correctly.
Yeah, no,
Schwannomatosis.
yeah, schwannomatosis. No, I continue to collaborate with my medical team at Stanford and see where this, there'll be other surveillance that I'll be going through. So I'm learning that as I go. That's but it's I just hope I'm hoping that the next surveillance I have will get some more information and figure out where I'm going from here. I mean, I'm asymptomatic with both of these mutations, and um, the it's just like I said, I just keep an open communication with as many of my medical team members, with the Veterans Administration Healthcare, and with my team down at Stanford. So but there's limited information on schwannomatosis. However,
Yes.
I'm hoping, my hopes are that we can keep tabs on this, continue to keep tabs on it, and I mean, see where it goes from here. But I'm going to maintain a positive attitude and just continue to respond by gathering as much information as possible. And hopefully there'll be more information on this in the decades to come. You know, um,
Correct.
okay.
Correct. Okay. Thank you so much, Dan. It was my honor to know so much about the way you take care of things, like to handle this uh, diagnosis. So that is really informational. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it very much.